So now I'm going to focus on some of these details with the grass. And I'm not going to draw in every single little shade of grass. I might mess around a little bit with custom brushes, might not, we'll see. But before I do my layering of grass, I'm going to block in some of these shadow areas. I'm going to switch back to my layer, switch back to my soft brush, and pay attention to where those darker areas are at. There's some over here and over here, and it may be very helpful to me to zoom in. So I'm going to do that just so that it is the same size. I can go up to view 100%, and now I am at hopefully 100%. We're going to make sure. There we go. So now I'm at the same size. That's very helpful when you start to go in for these little details. I'm going to come over with my brush, make my brush smaller, and start to block in some of these really dark greens. It's going to look goofy at first, but again, we are going to be covering a lot of it up. So I'm going to come in here, then strip up here, not quite at the top, some here, some towards the middle. Let me zoom out on here so I can see what I'm doing. So it's kind of between. Once you start making other marks, you can use those to position your thing, to position other areas. A little bit here, a little bit here, here. There's a really big pocket over by that corner, so I'm going to tackle that. And you don't have to get every single one. We're going for similar, not photorealistic, so don't stress. You'll notice with the soft brush, as you get smaller and smaller, it has a tendency to get less fuzzy. So I'm just putting in these pockets of shadow, hither and thither, like so. And I can come in and blend them if I want. I don't have to, but I want to. Wiggle. Too much wiggle. Don't wiggle them that much. And that, children, is when the smudge brush can betray you. When you wiggle too hard. Alright, I actually really like doing stuff like this. I love doing fur textures. I love doing grass textures. So I'm going to start with another sampling. This might be different. Hopefully it's different than that particular background color I started with. You can use a hard brush, soft brush for this, or if you're like me, I love this inking brush. It's a flat color, but you can still get some nice painterly effects with changing the opacity of it. And I'm going to check my size. A little bit smaller. And I'm just going to start to go ham and change the size a little bit because I want a pointed tip. Let me see what that looks like. Oh, yay. Yeah. And I'm going to start to layer and layer. May take a while, but I promise it's worth it. You can always tell when somebody's doing like this because it sounds tappy tappy. Now, this is part of why I had you guys get so used to zooming in, because right now this looks like a kindergartner attacked a wall with a crayon. But as I continue to layer and build, when we are finally zoomed out on all of this, chose another color, BT dubs, it's going to look much more refined and more detailed. My old drawing professor, who was a little bit insane but knew what he was doing, knew what he was talking about, used to talk about the gestalt of something. The gestalt is the big picture, the main idea. You might hear me say that a lot because for all his insanity, he was a really smart man and really inspirational. Had a heart transplant and gave him a whole new lease on life. So what I am doing now is just going over and over. I'm changing up the size of my brush. Not that big, to create some of those grass textures. Changing the direction. Most of the grass is going this way on this direction in the picture, but I'm not going to be super duper concerned with details like that. I'm not a perfectionist. If you want to be a perfectionist, go for it. I just want it to look like the thing we're trying to go for in the end. So I think I could get one more color going in here. I need to go back to some of this darker stuff. Let's sample. Sampling is a friend to you and me. And block that part in. I'm not really playing much with opacity here, but I could. I certainly could. It's a little tedious, but the end result, I'm not scribbling. Notice I'm not going, I'm being very deliberate with my strokes, following the normal direction grass would go. Grass does not go like this. That's not grass. Okay? And by layering all these different greens, eventually I can get something that looks very similar to what's in my photograph. I'm not going to bore you to tears and make you watch me do this entire field of grass. That's too thick. So for this, I'm using really small brush, like size 3, just for those of you wondering. Okay, so let's block in some grass.